Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. Welcome, everybody. Want to go through a couple of clips I spotted over the last week. Bookmarked them. Didn't end up having time to talk about these earlier in the week. First one is of everybody's best friend, former judge, and Republican Congressman Louie Gohmert, who I just don't know how this guy manages to get himself to work every day with the things he seems to believe and be confused by. During a recent hearing, Congressman Louie Gohmert asked whether the Bureau of Land Management might be able to change the orbit of the moon in order to deal with climate change once and for all. Let's take a look at this. Now, the premise is that the moon's orbit is changing, and that's true. We know that that's an absolutely true thing. The moon is slowly drifting away from Earth at something like 3.8 centimeters per year. And that's something we've seen over the last, few billion years or so. And Louie's idea is maybe the forest management and Bureau of Land Management agencies, they could just change the moon's orbit even further. Okay, here's the clip, and check out the reaction from Jennifer Silberstein. It's just perfect.
And I understand from what's been testified to, the Forest Service and the BLM, you want very much to work on the issue of climate change. I was informed by the immediate past director of NASA that they have found that the moon's orbit is changing slightly, and so is the Earth's orbit around the sun. We know there's been significant solar flare activity. And so is there anything that the National Forest Service or BLM can do to change the course of the moon's orbit or the Earth's orbit around the sun? Obviously, that would have profound effects on our climate.
I would have to follow up with you on that one, Mr. Gohmert.
Yeah. Well, if you figure out a way that you in the Forest Service can make that change, I'd like to know. Also, just to put on your radar.
That reaction is just something else. It's sort of, when a kid says, I want to make a dinosaur, and you say, yeah, let's check that out, Jimmy. Let's look into that. That sounds interesting. This is painfully dumb. And this is up there like with Donald Trump wanting to nuke a hurricane or something like that. Like how do we even analyze this other than to say, is it scarier that this guy's currently a member of Congress? Or is it scarier that this guy used to be a judge? Maybe member of Congress, because I don't know what the rules are for judges in Texas, but if they're just appointed, I don't know. Let me put it this way. It's an open question what's scarier, that this guy is a congressman or that he was a judge. I would go even further. I would say, don't have the forest managers deal with this. Just use that Jewish space laser that Marjorie Taylor Greene was talking about. And, Louie's real mistake is it's not Bureau of Land Management that's going to change the orbit. You've got to talk to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. That's really who's going to be able to get involved and change that lunar orbit. Just wacky and bizarre stuff. And this guy is one of 435 elected members of Congress. He has one of 435 privileged votes that determine so much about the lives of everyday Americans. Not a good sign for the country, that's for sure. A lot has been made of how the Bush family, they're more serious Republicans. They don't support Trump. George W. Bush, not a big Trump guy. Jeb Bush, seemingly not a big Trump guy. But in comes George P. Bush, and he's just on his knees, seemingly praying at the altar of Trump. And I think I know what it is that's going on here. He sounds almost like QAnon in this interview, Check this out where he says, no, 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 I'm my own man. And Trump is great. This Bush loves Trump. Take a look.
And so when I talk about my record, whether it's as land commissioner or my support of Trump, I just stick to the facts. The fact is that in 2016, I was one of the first statewide elected officials to come out and support him. I raised $1.5 million in support of Republican candidates with him at the top of the ticket. And it was a high watermark for Republican Party politics in the state of Texas. And in 2020, I boldly declared that Trump was the only thing standing between our country, the American people, and socialism. And lo and behold, I've turned out to be correct, with over $30 trillion in total spending, $6 trillion in just next year's annual budget. So when you look at my policies, I'm all about America first. Trump is the center of the Republican Party. I'm my own man. I support him, and we need to carry on that legacy, capture the lightning that he brought to the Republican Party so that we can help all of our fellow Republicans down ballot.
So through the holiday season this year, you're the son of Jeb Bush. The conversations must be fascinating. You're very strong, very distinct in your support for the president. We know that many members of your family do not like him. Is there been any pressure on you? Do you not have those conversations? How do you handle that?
Well, I think we're just like any American family in that we have our differences of opinion, whether it's with respect to President Trump, whether it's respect to hot button issues.
I mean, again, it's very similar to the type of stuff you hear at a Trump rally, right? Trump stopped socialism in its tracks, and now Biden is proof of how important that was. Out of this world sort of stuff. And what I would love to see asked as a question here is, okay, George P. Bush, that's interesting. Since you support Trump and you think Trump's great, was Trump right when Trump said that your uncle George W. Bush lied us into a pointless war with Iraq? Would George P. Bush agree with that? Is Trump the Lord and Savior on that particular question? I think this is nothing other than obvious, brazen brown-nosing for future help from Donald Trump, if indeed Donald Trump is still in a position of power. And what I mean by that is George P. Bush is running for Texas Attorney General. Texas is almost certainly going to play a major role in the future of American politics, maybe even in 2024. Trump might be back in. Trump might be the Republican nominee in 2024. Trump being president or not could depend on Texas. And Trump would absolutely crush this guy if he doesn't get in line. That's fundamentally what's going on here. I don't even know if George P. Bush really believes this stuff. Like, some part of me is, okay, George P. Bush is so wacky that he thinks Trump is great. That's terrible. That's a huge indictment of George P. Bush. The other side is he's just a liar. And he's of the George W. Bush, Jeb Bush, George H.W. Bush mindset about Trump. But he's saying this stuff because he thinks it will benefit him in the future, because he might need Trump's help, or at least he wants to avoid Trump's disdain. Either way, it's vile. Either the guy is an idiot or he's a complete and total liar. And I don't know which is worse, but it's not good. Not good is the way I would describe it. Make sure you're following me on Twitter. Let me know what you think about George P. Bush. Does he believe this stuff about Trump? Or is he simply trying to play towards Trump's support at some point in the future when he needs it? I'm on Twitter at @Pakman. Let me know. What a great program we have for you today. We'll take some of your calls next. We've had 2 weeks in a row of beautiful calls. I'm feeling pretty good about a third week, and then much more coming up. Stay with us. What if you could read 10 books in just one sitting? That's exactly what one of my favorite apps lets you do. It's called Blinkist, and what they do is take thousands of popular nonfiction books. They condense them down into text or audio that you can consume in 15 minutes. Blinkist makes sure that you're getting all of the important core insights from each book. So it's perfect for exploring a book you otherwise wouldn't have time for. If there's a full book you're thinking about buying, you can use Blinkist to get a sample first. Just think how much you can enrich yourself by being able to soak up an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. I recently read A Brief History of Time, of course, by the great Stephen Hawking. This is a book that I have been aware of for so long, and other things got in the way. and it was fantastic to check it out on Blinkist. Blinkist has books on politics, philosophy, science. They have 27 different nonfiction categories, and a subscription is only about $8 a month, and you get the entire library. But you can try it totally free and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/David Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video. Remember that the David Pakman Show is mostly funded by members. It is the much maligned but never equaled, world famous and award-winning bonus show. Yeah, I know that there are awards we give out, but who cares? Join at joinpakman.com. Very easy. We do an extra show every day for our members, and it's just a good time. It's just a good time. Let's hear from some people via Discord. We used to take phone calls via an actual phone line, and it was a disaster for a whole bunch of different reasons. We now do it via Discord. It's a disaster for completely different reasons, and I believe preferable reasons. You can find the Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord. That is the place. Let's see what is on folks' minds today. Let's go to, you know what? Let's go to our friend Sabrina. We haven't heard from Sabrina for so long. What's going on, Sabrina?
Hey, Sabrina. Sorry. Hey, David. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you so well. You must be using a perfect phone.
Okay, sorry about that. I obviously haven't had enough coffee this morning. Thanks so much for taking my call. As you know, I'm a longtime fan, a longtime viewer. I actually wanted to ask you what you think about the current race for mayor in Boston. I'm actually volunteering with Michelle Wu, and I know a couple of people on the campaign that work really closely with her. I think it'd be really cool for you to have Michelle Wu on the show, do a little interview, and talk about what's on her mind.
Yeah, the thing about mayor's races, I mean, even like New York City mayor might rise to the level where it makes sense for a show like ours, where most of our audience is not in any one city. So mayoral races are tough, but New York City, maybe. Boston is tough. I just don't know. I've not been following it super closely. Michelle Wu does follow me on Twitter, and she's aware of the show. She's in the universe. I know people volunteering for a number of the different candidates. I just don't know, Sabrina, if it's right for this show, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. I think her campaign is just part of a larger trend of progressives running all over the country.
Sure. No, that's a good point. You should really be doing PR, because see, when a publicist comes to me, they come to me and they say, "Sir, here's my guest no one's ever heard about to talk about some topic you're not interested in." And I'll say, I don't see why it's good for our show. A good publicist will say exactly what you just did, which is, no, this is part of the story here isn't Boston. The story is progressives, right? You know, so you really may have a future in PR, Sabrina.
Awesome. So I'll keep pushing it if things get better with the campaign in the next couple months. Thanks so much for taking my call, David. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Sabrina. Very, very good. Listen, that's a big job, which is convincing people on shows that what you're pitching is actually interesting. Why don't we go next to Alex from San Diego? Alex, you're on the air.
Wow. Hello. I didn't actually expect to be chosen. So I have a question for you. I've long thought that the most important issue in politics today is the impact that money has on politics. And then if you solve that, a lot of the other issues would naturally solve themselves over time, as people's natural instincts are very reasonable in general. Do you agree that this is the most important issue, or do you see something else as the most important issue today?
I believe that there is a sort of triumvirate or a three-headed monster of sorts that are really the three most important issues systemically. And you hit on one of them. Money in politics is one aspect of this. Climate change is a sort of systemic and structural issue where if cities end up underwater, it's not going to really matter what our opinion about abortion is. So it's sort of like whatever issue you care about, if we don't deal with climate change, we're not going to be able to get that fixed. And then thirdly would be how our elections are run, meaning that they're mostly first past the post and for the presidency, it's an electoral college system. So all those three issues together, if we could fix campaign finance, money in politics, if we could get to some kind of transferable vote and get rid of the electoral college, and then if we could deal with climate change, then we would sort of be set up to start dealing with like, okay, I care about education. Here's how I'll be an activist on education. You might care about, trans rights. Here's how you can get involved in that. I think that you are right in identifying one of the three major issues.
See, that's kind of my point, though. I feel like a lot of those other issues can, in many ways, be reduced down to the money and politics issue, like climate change, for example. If there was some way to resolve campaign finance, then over time, candidates would begin to more accurately represent the will of the people, hopefully or ideally. And most people want to do something about climate change.
Yeah, I don't disagree in that you're saying that over the long term that we might get to some kind of equilibrium, but it would be a long time because even if you, quote, dealt with money in politics, fossil fuels are still advantaged in a number of different ways, including by the sheer market power that they have in ways that are not directly connected to money in politics. So I'm with you about the long term. I think if we wanted to more quickly do something about it, I would still put these three issues sort of as the three-headed monster that needs to be dealt with.
I see. Thank you for that. I have one other very minor thing, if you don't
Sure.
mind. The other thing is I've had this idea, and I don't know if anyone else has talked about it. I've never heard it talked about, but it's related to like how to address worker executive pay disparity. Why, in addition to also being able to increase taxes on very wealthy people and wealth in general. And I realize this idea may be unpassable, but nonetheless, I want to know what you think of it.
Sure.
Why not tie the tax rate for corporations to the difference between like the highest paid executives and the median pay of the company, such that the bigger that disparity, the more the company pays in some additional tax. And if they want to reduce that tax, they have to improve average worker pay.
It's a super interesting idea. And so to give an example, the way it might work would be if the CEO earns 100 times more than the lowest paid person, you pay a 12% corporate tax rate. But if the CEO earns 1,000 times that of the lowest paid person, your tax rate goes up to 40%, something like that, right? I mean, not those numbers, but that's the idea. Yeah, I think it's super interesting. I think there's a couple problems. One is I don't know how something like that even comes close to passing, but let's ignore that, right? Because we're talking about whether it's a good idea. I think you still, because the corporate tax rate, first of all, applies only to certain businesses, any self-proprietorship, LLC, S corporation, those are passed through, so the corporate tax rate doesn't even make a difference to them. Unless you deal with that and the fact that you can still deduct and loophole your way down to zero tax liability, you would need to still combine it with an alternative minimum tax for corporations. You'd have to do a bunch of other stuff. It's interesting. Practically speaking, I don't see any way that it would pass in the next 20 years, but I think it's a really interesting idea.
Okay, thank you for that, dude. That's all I have. Keep up
All right.
the good work.
Thank you very much. Guys, this is week 3 of really strong phone calls. Really, really strong phone calls. Not going to lie. We've really kind of hit our stride, I guess I would say. Let's go to Chandler from Indianapolis. Chandler from Indianapolis, you're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, David. First time calling, long time listener. Hate to be that cliche.
Thank you.
But yeah, so I just have a question about COVID in general. So I live in Indianapolis, and just recently the mask mandate was lifted for the city. City County Council lifted it on Monday night. And something that really concerns me is that the percentage of the people who live in the city who have gotten the vaccine, at least like one shot, is only like I think it's like 36%, less than 40%.
Yikes.
I'm not really sure what you would think let me just rephrase this. So what would you think would be a reasonable percentage for a mask mandate to be lifted for a city You know, like the size of Indianapolis. I don't know how it is with Boston or how it is up there.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not an epidemiologist or an immunologist. So basically I'm going by what I've read those experts say, but it seems quite reasonable to me that as you approach 50% immunized, that certainly masks can start coming off, and we're seeing masks come off in most places, and things seem to be more or less going okay among the vaccinated. The unvaccinated are seeing increased hospitalizations in some places, like in Tennessee. But yeah, I mean, I think at 50%, you can start to really do a lot of things.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree. And honestly, at this point of the pandemic, I would believe that, you know, some things are kind of common sense. Like if you're going to go to Walmart, I would probably wear a mask. You know, if you were to go out to a park, you know, don't wear a mask unless there's like a crowd for whatever reason. Yeah, so
right.
I think that common sense would definitely be kind of what we all need to be listening for.
Yeah, and remember that the CDC has
age.
said that once you are vaccinated, essentially every activity is low risk without a mask. But certainly if there's a situation in which you still would be more comfortable with a mask, I say wear it. Why not?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and let me see.
Well, that's all great. I'm going to let you go because we have so many people, but that's a great question, and I'm hopefully things will continue to improve in Indianapolis.
Right on. I appreciate you taking the call.
All right.
Keep on doing what you're doing, man.
Very good. Thank you so much. Let's take a really quick break. If you're holding, don't hang up, because we are taking more calls momentarily. Stay with us. Don't forget that the best way to support the David Pakman Show is by becoming a member, which gives you access to the daily bonus show, the regular show with no commercials. You also get access to our entire archive of every episode dating back a really long time, and plenty of other awesome membership perks. Go to joinpakman.com and use the coupon code BETTER21 for a huge discount. Joinpakman.com. All right, let's go back to the Discord lines and hear from some more folks. You can find the David Pakman Show Discord at davidpakman.com/Discord, of course. Why don't we talk to, you know what? You know who's on? Noog Wrangler from California is here, crossover caller from The Majority Report and other shows that some may be aware of. Noog, what is going on?
Oh, hello, David.
Hello.
So I'm not going to bring up that thing you told me not to bring up before you started recording.
Okay.
So let me begin by not bringing that up.
All right.
So I've, as you've mentioned, I've been getting radicalized over at Friends of the Set, The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
Mm-hmm.
And they have assessed that the friendly language of Democratic Party leadership, like Biden and Pelosi towards Republicans, is a significant part of what let Republicans gain seats in the House recently. Saying things like, we need Republicans will come around after Trump is gone, etc. And, I've had enough. I think it's time for the Democratic Party to start trash talking these clowns. You see what I mean by radicalization. But anyways.
Sure.
Let's not forget that the Trump admin didn't want to do stimulus checks at first, calling them bailouts of Democrat-run cities.
Right.
So I ask, is it time or is it risky? Because I guess Manchin would be even less cooperative.
I don't know that I understand the question. Is the question about the rhetoric towards Republicans or the discussions within Democrats?
No, the rhetoric towards Republicans. Like, should Democratic politicians start, kind of just abandoning this kind of friendly attitude towards bipartisanship?
Yeah, okay, I understand it. Okay, so this is a good question. Listen, here's my thought on this, and I even talked about this earlier in the week to some extent. I think it's good to say you would rather get something done with Republicans than without them. I think that's a great thing to say. Why not, right? Let's if we can do something with Republicans without compromising our values, let's do it with Republicans. I think it's great to involve Republicans in the conversation. When I read that Joe Biden has had this or that Republican at the White House and they talked about this and they talked about, that's fantastic, but you've got to know when to cut it off. And so now we have reports, for example, that the negotiations with Biden and Republicans on the infrastructure bill are now done because Republicans, Biden sliced $1 trillion off and Republicans came up $150 billion. It's like, come on, guys, that's not going to go anywhere. So you just cut it off. And the problem for Democrats is twofold. Number one, now there's like a moderate group of Democrats and Republicans negotiating the infrastructure bill. I don't know that something that gets negotiated by moderate Democrats and Republicans actually gets 60 votes in the Senate. I think you end up, if you're on the Democratic side, your only option will end up being budget reconciliation. And that's if you can get 50 votes. And then it becomes a matter of, can you convince Joe Manchin? Can you convince Kyrsten Sinema? So I don't have a problem with the talk of bipartisanship. I don't have a problem with negotiations. I don't have a problem with involving Republicans. But at a certain point, you have to cut it off and you have to say, we're doing it our way and we're just going to do it. The problem is if you only have 49 votes in the Senate, then you can't do it. And that's where Joe Manchin gets all of his power from.
Yeah, it's kind of bleak.
It's bleak. I'm not going to lie. But listen, we still have memes, right? We at least have that.
We do. That's true. I should get started on some of those too. I have some ideas.
Please. I think that would bring a nice positive energy to the show.
All right. You know what the memes I am waiting for though is when the elections get close and the memes last year of I don't know, something important, and then it cuts off to you saying, doesn't matter, we need to get out and vote. Everybody needs to vote. We're
going to get back to that. All right. Thank you for the call, my friend.
Thank you. All
right. There we go. Noog Wrangler there. Let's go next to, there's some interesting folks here. Let's go to, I'm going to pronounce it correctly this time, Nisha from Michigan. Did I get it right, Nisha?
Yes, David, you got it right.
Thank you. What's going on?
Nothing much. I actually did talk to my friend that I talked to you about, I guess the last time that I was on.
Yeah, it was like a Trumpist, but not a super crazy one. Is that right?
Yeah, she's definitely not a Trumpist or anything like that. She just doesn't really like, she doesn't really trust the vaccine and whatnot.
Oh, it was the vaccine. So, okay, all right, fair enough. Okay,
yeah,
yes.
It was the vaccine.
Vaccine, got it.
We kind of had a bit of a falling out.
Really? Am I responsible for it?
No, you're not.
Okay.
Because I had told her that a friend of mine and another friend of mine and her mother, they were fully vaccinated, and yeah. I was actually able to let them see my child.
Right.
And once I told her that, I think she kind of got very defensive, and then she asked me why did I get the vaccine, because now I'm fully vaccinated.
Right.
So I pretty much, of course, had to go and tell her, like, the reason why I got my vaccination was because to protect my daughter and whatnot. And also my husband also got the same thing as well.
Yep.
So I tried to not get into a debate with her because she was asking me so many questions, and then she was bombarding me with all this stuff. And she was even telling me, of course, with her, whatever type of research that she had. And I was like, where's your proof and where's your proof and whatnot? It was like, well, I don't know. Where'd you get your stuff? I read my stuff. So
right.
I just couldn't really, and then I had to go and ask my husband to pretty much help me out, because she kept on saying that the vaccine was pretty much done in a matter of months. And I pretty much had to go and tell her, it wasn't really in a matter of months. It pretty much took over a decade.
Right. Yeah. I think my approach to when people say that is, sequencing the virus is a matter of a few hours. What the point here with these mRNA vaccines is the underlying technology, and that's been researched for more than a decade. Sequencing the virus is child's play, and it can be done in just a matter of hours. But this is a different type of vaccine, and so just applying that kind of statement doesn't really make sense because the underlying technology has been in development for so long.
Right. and because I think my husband has said that I think they started doing it I think back in 2003, so pretty much almost I guess close to 2 decades. I
That may
could be
be.
wrong. Yeah.
But Nisha,
So
so are you guys no longer speaking because of the vaccine differences of opinion?
pretty much is differences of opinion. She of course told me that her sister was of course getting the vaccine and her mother was too.
Yeah.
And she was infected with COVID. I think maybe 3 weeks ago. So she finally, of course, got out of it.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much thinking, like, don't you think that would at least been a reason for you to at least take the vaccine just so you don't get sick anymore?
Right.
Because I kind of had some type of epiphany, like if you keep on getting sick from the same virus over and over again, it might, I don't know, I could be wrong, that it might damage you in some type of way to where you can't really recover from it like you should.
Well, once you recover, you're protected from that strain for some period of time, but it's not as robust protection as from getting vaccinated. Yeah.
Right.
Well, listen. Hopefully, the relationship can be reconvened and rehabilitated. And I really appreciate you giving me the update, Nisha.
Okay.
All right. Thanks very much.
Definitely. All right. Well,
there is Nisha from Michigan with an update there. Let's go next to Emil from Maryland. Emil from Maryland, you're on the air.
Hey, David. Thanks for pronouncing my name correctly.
My pleasure.
I wanted to ask you, have you been following or have you heard about the ongoing situation in Ethiopia?
Not if there's anything recent. I mean, generally speaking, I've been following Ethiopia for 10 years, but what's going on right now?
The Tigray crisis, the civil war going on in the northern region that has started in November. You've heard about that?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious, what is the sort of the narrative, I guess, that you've heard about it? And I haven't really seen you cover much on your show. I'm just curious why you haven't.
Yeah, I just don't know enough about it. You know, one of the things I try not to do on this show is that I just don't know enough about it. I'm not the right person to give you any kind of hot take or analysis of it. I haven't covered it because I don't know enough about it, and I've been so busy with other things. So I don't want to comment on things I don't know about.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand that, and I respect that. I just wanted to say that the situation is really complicated in general. There are some people who have an interest in putting out a genocide narrative, and I just think that's really inconclusive at this time. There needs to be an investigation on the atrocities that are happening, because they definitely are happening there. There are some war crimes going on, but I just really hope that the U.S. and the Biden administration doesn't pull some kind of Libya or Syria type of intervention in that. I just think that it would be a really bad disaster and really destabilize the region.
All right. Well, let me read up on it, and I'll follow up if I have something to add.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, like I just want to say, a lot of the stuff that is in the Western media is, I feel like, a little biased, and from what I'm hearing from like internally in the country, it's just a really complicated situation, and I feel like it's just gonna be a while before we really know like what's actually going on.
That applies to most conflicts, that the perspective from Western media is relatively narrow, and rarely does any perspective fully tell us really what's going on in the country. I think we should bring that approach to our understanding of most situations.
Seeing this, it's kind of made me rethink a little bit the Israel-Palestine conflict, because I can kind of see how things can get distorted when you don't understand the history. But I just think most people should be a little agnostic on the situation. We'll learn more in the time coming. They're having a big election next month, and we'll see how things unfold after that.
All right, Emil, thank you.
Yep, thanks, David.
All right, there is Emil from Maryland. Why don't we go next over to... let's go to Jaron from Atlanta. Jaron, you're on the air.
Hey, David. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure.
I wanted to ask about what you thought of the job that Janet Yellen has been doing, especially with this new deal, the World Corporate Global Tax Minimum. I wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah, I mean, my general take on Yellen so far is she's been predictable. We had a sense, when she was selected by Joe Biden, there were some on the left who said, this is another neoliberal centrist. And, I took the time of digging into papers she's written and work that she's done. And she's definitely, she's definitely not a socialist, right? Which is no surprise. Neither is Joe Biden. But her perspectives are sort of as left as one might imagine a mainline Democratic president would have. When it comes to her outlook on inflation and interest rates, it's been sort of unremarkable, but I'm basically with her about it's really too soon to make any serious decisions or have any serious sense of the direction that inflation is going. As far as the global wealth tax, I saw the proposal some period of time. Did something new happen in the last week that I missed with it?
I haven't seen anything about that. I just saw the G7 deal.
I think it's an interesting idea. And for people who don't know, the point of some of this is if you can get countries to come together and say, all of us are going to agree that individuals cannot avoid taxes in one member country by shifting income to another member country. And we want a base minimum level of global tax that is going to be paid. I think it's an interesting idea. I see it very difficult to enforce. And it's one of those things where I would really want to know the details of how they're proposing it be done. And then where would disputes be adjudicated related to it? Like there's questions which maybe have been answered and I haven't looked into it enough yet. I think it's super interesting. I don't know how you really get it done.
Yeah, I think it's great that she's starting to hold, and as well as the other economic leaders of the free world, starting to hold multinational corporations accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With that being the end goal, is something I'm completely behind. The implementation and how you get it done is where I'd want to know more.
And also, just one quick thing for the future outlook of Yellen. Do you think she'll be able to do a good job of managing inflation as we get out of this pandemic phase?
I do think so. I think she seems to understand that the numbers from March and April really don't tell us what we need to know to come up with a comprehensive and more reliable outlook. I have every confidence that she has the knowledge and experience to successfully manage inflation. I have no real concern right now.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. That's really great insight. I'm just a high schooler. I took an economics class.
No way.
I took a political class, and this stuff really interests me. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you for the call, Jaron.
Thank you so much.
All right. Wow. Jaron in high school, would not have guessed that from the questions that were coming in. Okay. Let's continue. Who do we want to speak to next? Oh, I don't know. There's just so many possibilities here. How about Josh from Rhode Island? Rhode Island, not a state heavily represented during live calls, Josh.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, nice speaking with you. My question has to do with unemployment. So recently I saw that they changed unemployment to where you have to be looking for a job again. Like you have to be actively doing that.
Yes.
And I was wondering, because I hear all the time people, they'll say that, oh, everyone just wants to be on unemployment. And then when I say that now they have to be looking for a job, I hear, people can just, they just apply to I think it's 3 jobs a week and then don't do anything else and then just collect their check. So my question's kind of in 2 parts. First is I hear that a lot, but is it actually that easy to just apply to a few places and then get money without having to do anything? And part 2, are people actually doing that? Because from conservatives, I hear all the time that people don't want to work and they'll just, apply to a job just to get unemployment. And I want to know if that's actually a thing that happens.
So first of all, in order to initially qualify for unemployment, you actually have to be unemployed. So in normal circumstances, you have to have lost a job but not been fired for cause, right? And so just to qualify for unemployment, some barriers have to be, some threshold has to be met. Is it as simple as applying to a few jobs to continue receiving unemployment? It basically is, yeah. And it depends on the state. Like, for example, when I was in college, I used to work for the now defunct Circuit City. And when they switched from commission to hourly for salespeople, they laid off the top salespeople, one of which I was. And so I got to collect unemployment because my position was eliminated. I had to go on and say, I'm looking for a job. I wasn't asked, where did I apply? It was just, have you been looking for a job? Yes, I have. And then I would get the money. That system may have changed. The systems are different in each state. That is something that you can do. You apply for a few jobs and then you continue collecting unemployment. I am not worried about this. And I've made a couple of clips explaining why. But fundamentally, enhanced unemployment ends in September. You are not allowed to be on unemployment an indefinite amount of time. Many people in the fall are going to get to the end of unemployment. And at that point, they are going to stop receiving the benefits. So they are either going to have to figure out how to pay for their expenses without making any money, or they're going to have to go and get themselves a job. So any social insurance program will have some free riders or people who just do the minimum in order to keep collecting the unemployment. As long as the system, big picture, is working, and unemployment and enhanced unemployment saved so many people during the pandemic, I don't worry about a few free riders. They're going to lose their benefits relatively soon anyway. The benefits don't last forever.
All right, thank you. So just if a conservative is saying that, like, you know, unemployment is just keeping people lazy and keeping them off from working, just like mention the benefits and say that, like, it's not actually as, you know, reliable to like live off of as conservatives think it is.
Yeah, and there is no evidence that most people want to earn what you earn on unemployment and don't work. We have a really rare situation right now because of the pandemic and the enhanced unemployment. But generally speaking, people want to work. Generally speaking, you make more working than on state unemployment. Now we have an enhanced unemployment, and there are some people who would be satisfied just making unemployment and not working, but it's very few. Many people get meaning from work. People get a connection to other people. Most people want to work, period.
All right, thank you very much. This is actually my first time trying to call in, so it means a lot to be able to speak with you. So
Beautiful.
Thank you for all the content.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, let's hear from a couple of other people. Why don't we go to, is it Cayenne from Queens?
Hi, David. Yeah, it's Cayenne.
How are you?
Hi, doing well. So my first question is related to how Biden is doing. I'm a pretty left progressive, and when Biden won, I was still kind of hopeful. There was some talk of him being, you know, having these FDR aspirations.
Yeah.
But over the past few months, I feel like he hasn't really been talking about much that has been important to progressives, like climate change, healthcare, or a minimum wage just kind of went out the window, disappeared. So I'm wondering, do you think he's starting to feel like it's okay to just abandon these things that are important to the progressive base? And in addition, like a similar question, but different perspective is, do you think he's okay because Americans don't really expect much from government? I mean, they're like okay with just how things are, and as long as, you know, they don't have an idiot like Trump leading, that they're just like okay and they don't expect much. And do you think that's a problem?
So I think that there are lots of people who no longer expect much from government, but the thing we have to be careful with that is that there's a political movement which is all about not expecting stuff from government, and that government should be doing less. So I think that that's something we sort of want to be careful of in terms of the language we use. In terms of Biden, I mean, listen, I think that I'm not seeing any U-turns from Biden. What I am certainly seeing is he hasn't yet done all of the things he promised to do. He talked about a public option that hasn't happened. There's other things. He got COVID relief passed. He scaled up vaccination. Now he's working on infrastructure. If he gets an infrastructure deal done by September 1st, it will be a pretty significant first year in terms of major legislation, in conjunction with a lot of the executive orders that he did early to undo some of the stuff that Donald Trump did. Is it a progressive dream? No, but I never expected it to be. So my sense is Biden's doing more or less what I expected, and I've not seen him abandon anything he claimed he would do yet. Some things he hasn't done yet, right? So we have to give him a term to see if he does it. But I feel like I'm getting from Biden exactly what I expected.
Okay. Yeah, I'm also getting what I expected. Like, my mindset in the primaries is like, he's not going to do much to satisfy progressives, but I don't know what happened. I just had some weird hope that in the beginning, like, maybe he's more progressive than we thought. So that was probably not a good way for me to think.
No, I believed from the beginning that he was exactly who he said he was during the campaign. And that's what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah. So about the second question, like, do you think that it's a problem that Americans, you said I should watch my language, but I just feel like Americans are satisfied. They're like, you know, we're very insular, so, you know, we have a hard time seeing that other countries have, you know, universal healthcare or free college tuition. So they're just like, okay with not having that as long as everything seems stable. Is that a problem?
I think there are lots of people who want those things. But after the 4 years we had, certainly the standard for just a minimum that people expect, which is like a president that sort of seems normal and doesn't alienate every other country that we're allied with, et cetera, the bar has been dropped and we are adjusting to that bar being dropped. As that happens, I think it will be perfectly reasonable to refocus exactly on the things you're talking about that are more common in Northern European social democracies. So it's not a one or the other. It's we're adjusting to the new normal of having had Trump as president for 4 years. And I think we're pretty close to being adjusted, and now it's time to get some stuff done.
Okay, I appreciate your perspective, and thanks for having me on.
All right, Cayenne from Queens, very much appreciate the call. That's going to do it for today. As always, sorry I couldn't get to everybody, but I will take more calls again very soon. If you value what we do at The David Pakman Show, remember to support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/David Pakman Show, where you can get access to behind-the-scenes videos, the Daily Bonus Show, the commercial-free Daily Show, as well as special discounts on merch, including hats, hoodies, mugs, and t-shirts. You can support the show for as little as $2 a month. Check it out at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. All right, let's get into audience questions for the week. Much to discuss today. I got so many messages about this that I will talk about it. It wasn't part of my coverage on Monday of Donald Trump's speech because it wasn't actually something that happened. But I got so many emails saying, David, is it true that Donald Trump wore his pants backwards at that crazy speech in North Carolina? It is not true. But listen, I understand what's going on. Trump came up to the stage, and we're going to show a picture of it, and his pants just looked strange. There were weird creases on the front. It almost looked like there was no zipper, like there was just a seam, and there was speculation his pants were backwards, or it was some kind of a mermaid outfit, or he was wearing an elastic waistband, and that's why there was no zipper. I have to tell you, when I looked at it closely, the wrinkles looked like Trump had just been sitting, and the pants are wrinkly. And I do see what looks like a zipper crease, although it's not as noticeable maybe as some others would imagine it to be. And I didn't for a second think that Donald Trump wore his pants backwards. This was then looked at by Snopes, and Snopes did indeed determine, no, Trump did not wear his pants backward at the rally. You asked, so we watched the 90-minute speech. And they found that the photographs simply do not show that Trump's pants were backwards. Now, what's the funny thing to me about this is, first of all, the idea that many of us would believe that Trump might wear his pants backwards. Like that wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility. I would believe it. It just happened not to have been the case. But the more interesting thing was, how low is the bar that a lot of the commentaries, including my own on Twitter, when I saw this, were essentially, listen, the speech was deranged. Trump lied throughout it. He told corrosive lies about democracy. He did all of these things, but his pants weren't on backwards. And I think it was Lucas Grindley from The Advocate, if I recall correctly, who responded to me and said, this is how low the bar now is, that we can say, at least the guy's pants were on straight. But no, his pants were forward. I don't really care about Donald Trump's clothing. I've never understood from a very just practical perspective, a guy as wealthy as Trump claims to be, or as wealthy as Trump is, they're not the same thing, but he's still a wealthy guy. How has no one gone to him and said, sir, the full seat suit look is not in right now. The tailored, slimmer fit look is in. Or maybe they have, and Trump doesn't look right in the slimmer fit suits. I've never understood how a guy this wealthy has such terrible suits, but I know that Trump's an older guy, and that's a style that there are other older men I know who still like the full seat suit, and that appears to be Trump. But his pants were on forward, as far as we can tell. David, now that we know more about the UFO UAP revelations of the last month, are you ready to say that the UFOs aren't aliens from another planet? Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know how many times I have to say this. I've been asked this so many times. When we talk about an unidentified flying object or a UAP, we aren't implying that the default would be, if we aren't aware of what a thing is, it's aliens from another planet. And so after the 60 Minutes interview came out with these claims about these UAP UFOs that pilots had seen, and some of the documents that the government has released. And the indication was, we don't know what this is because it doesn't match anything that is ours. And it's appearing to defy some of the constraints of the physical world as we understand it, and so on and so forth. My first explanation isn't, these are aliens that came from somewhere else and nobody else saw them arrive. No other country saw them arrive to the planet. But then our military pilots see. I don't go to that. The simplest explanations to me include some aspect of this was distorted by the way that it was filmed, which is one area of study that is being looked at, and the idea that certain camera lenses can make things look as though they are moving in ways and at speeds in which they actually aren't. That's one aspect. The other aspect would be these are foreign elements of some kind from an adversary, and so we are not we're being given limited information, and this is surveillance of some kind from an adversary. The third possibility would be this is U.S. stuff that is so highly classified that what the government has decided to do is to allow the pilots to come out and say what they did, but not go any further, and just claim this is not stuff the U.S. government is at least publicly taking credit for, when it actually is some classified government program. And then the fourth possibility, and this is like the cynical one in some sense, is that this is all a disinformation campaign to make other countries see this stuff and go, oh man, do they have this in the United States? Are these actually technologies that the US has? We are way behind. Let's try to reverse engineer this, for example. And the idea is a disinformation campaign to send other countries on a wild goose chase to stuff that's simply CGI. All of those possibilities strike me as far more likely. Again, just an Occam's razor, what requires the fewest assumptions. Those all strike me as far more likely than these are aliens from some other part of the universe that have visited us. When I sort of said this is my position a couple of weeks ago, I got 99% emails from people saying, David, thank you. This just makes sense. This seems like the most plausible way to understand what we've seen. And a few people saying, David, obviously these are aliens from another planet and everybody's in on the cover-up and you're part of being in on the cover-up. Again, that requires lots of assumptions and complexity. So I tend to lean towards the simpler explanations. Now, for people who will write to me and say, David, do you think that there are aliens? I think that statistically, it's likely there is intelligent life elsewhere in the universe other than Earth. I just don't think this is it arriving. Call me crazy. Let me know your thoughts. That's my best guess as to what this is as of right now. Hey, David, 10% of the Trump rioters were military. Doesn't this make Trump's coup fantasy a real possibility? So I think there's a few important things to talk about here. One is, remember, anytime we're talking about a percentage, we need to know what the base rate is. The research I've done shows that 7% of the population is veterans, and just under 0.5% of the population is currently active duty military. So military was overrepresented at the Trump riots, but not dramatically so. Overrepresented, but not dramatically so. So active duty and veterans are 7.4% of the population. And so far, 1 in 10 defendants are military. That means that 10% instead of 7.4%, that's about a 33% overrepresentation of military in the Trump riot defenders. Okay, good. Next question. Could 10% of the military, imagine that 10% of the military supported a coup for Donald Trump. It's already the wrong math. 10% of those willing to riot are members of the military. That does not mean 10% of the military is willing to riot to try to overthrow Joe Biden. So the numbers don't even make sense. But more importantly, because of the military chain of command, even if 10% of the military was willing, able, and interested to participate in some kind of insurrection to reinstall Donald Trump and remove Joe Biden, it's just not enough. It's just not enough. And it's been made pretty clear, and I know that there are those who say they're just pretending. It's pretty clear that military leadership would not support anything like what Donald Trump claims to be dreaming up, or what it is claimed Donald Trump is dreaming up for August or whenever it's supposed to be. So I think that there's a concern about, yes, the overrepresentation of military among the rioters. There's a concern about law enforcement involvement as a part of the January 6th riots. There are concerns that we could again see violence in August when again Donald Trump doesn't become president of the United States. That's all for sure, no doubt about it. Do I think that even if 10% of the military wanted the coup, they could make it happen? No, I don't. And remember, it's not 10% of the military are Trump coups. It's 10% of the rioters are current or former military. So I don't think that this is actually something that we have to worry about. I think we have lots to worry about. I think there are concerns about, will things get violent? I think there are concerns about, to what degree will the Republican Party continue to use the same rhetoric that propped up the January 6th rioters? All of those are concerns. What will the most committed QAnon Trumpists do when August comes and goes, and again, Donald Trump is not president of the United States? I don't have the answers to that, but the military is not going to actually help Donald Trump achieve this. If you disagree with me, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at @Pakman. We've got a great bonus show for you today. You can get instant access to the bonus show by becoming a member at joinpakman.com or by becoming a patron at patreon.com/David Pakman Show. Thanks a lot for watching today's show. I just want to take a second to tell you about today's sponsors. Blinkist is the app that helps you become a more well-rounded person by letting you read or listen to an entire nonfiction book in just 15 minutes. You can try it for free and get 25% off a subscription by going to Blinkist.com/David Pakman.